Amplitude is an overly ambitious rhythm game from Harmonix, the developers of Guitar Hero and Rock Band. And I've always considered it to be the best rhythm game of all time, if not the best game of all time. It's a sequel to the game Frequency, but today we're just talking about Amplitude and its sequel. Psh, that's not gonna work. You need loud electronic music. Ah, there we go. You guys awake yet? Alright, let's do this. Amplitude is played using the L1, R1, and R2 buttons, combined with square, triangle, and circle, to blast notes as they fall down the note highway. Instruments are color-coded: red for drums, blue for bass, green for vocals, purple for effects and keys. You get the idea. Blasting a note successfully will play the instrument, but it doesn't just mute the instrument if you miss a note, like Guitar Hero. The notes truly contain the sound of the instrument inside of them, and you use that to remix songs, share them online, and I'm getting ahead of myself here. Every 4 bars of music is represented as a phrase. If you complete a phrase, you'll clear the instrument and need to move over to the next one. If you manage to move to the next instrument and keep playing without missing a single beat, your multiplier increases. Finishing your phrase on the instrument, keeping the next instrument in your vision, and quickly jumping over to it without missing a single beat is crazy hard, and one of the main things that separates this from other rhythm games. The soundtrack here is a genre-hopping, rock-solid list of songs that spans POD, Garbage, Run DMC, Weezer, David Bowie, Pink, Papa Roach, Herbie Hancock, Slipknot, Blink-182, some lesser-known artists like Freeze Pop and Diesel Boy. As you play, certain notes will contain power-ups. There's the Auto Blaster, which clears the instrument and can save you from losing your multiplier if you do miss a note. There's the Score Doubler, which doubles your multiplier, not your score. There's a Freestyle, which lets you fly through the air, adding record scratches or mashing samples, which gives you a set amount of points per bar, and those points can also be doubled or tripled or quadrupled by your multiplier. There's the Slow-Mo power-up, which can help you make it over to the next track easier and makes notes easier to hit. A perfect run of a song would be not missing a single note, not missing a single phrase, and keeping your eyes at the far point of the note highway to choose your power-ups intelligently. Like you can use a Score Doubler when you have an 8 times multiplier to bounce it to a 16 times multiplier, and then grab a Freestyle, and then just rack up points like crazy. There's more power-ups in the online multiplayer as well, and the ability to use the previously mentioned ones aggressively. Use an Auto Blaster on another player's track to ruin their multiplier. Fly over them with your Freestyle to cause their track to become practically unreadable. Or use one of the other power-ups, including the Bumper, which lets you bump another player off the track and kills their multiplier, as well as the Crippler, which makes the other player's track wobble around and makes it difficult to hit the notes. What you're looking at on the screen right now is some of the only footage that I could find of the online multiplayer. The quality may be terrible, but it's YouTube 10 years ago, it'll have to do. Amazingly, I'm in the video as well. You can see me in the orange there, Devil Callum. Yeah, I've never been good at usernames. Alright, get this. There's also a remix mode. So remix mode lets you pop open any song and remix every single instrument to make your own music. Open up Blink-182, go to the drum track, push L1, and you've got the exact same kick drum sound that Blink used at that section of the rock show. Push R1 for the snare, push R2 for the hi-hat, go crazy on the drums, and then move over to the guitar. Same idea, push L1 to drop a guitar note that was tied to L1 at that section of the song. If that's not good enough for you, there's still more. You can add reverb and chorus effect to any instrument independently. You can mute the vocal track, or you can adjust the tempo to the point where the song you're remixing just becomes your own song. Once you get your remix sounding good, you can save it and name it whatever you want, and then you can play it in-game, both in single player or online. Or you can even share it to the community in the game. Other players can download your remixes and play them online with other players on the PlayStation 2 in 2003. Or you can take your mixes out of the game and upload to Freak Remixes. Freak Remixes was a fan-run website and a forum exclusively dedicated to being a community of Frequency and Amplitude players. It allowed you to upload your song creations and people could listen to them in their browser, rate them, vote for them to be the song of the week. It was an amazing community. Online multiplayer in this game was my entire life for years. The servers have long since been shut down, but I'm trying to do my best to describe just how impressive this game was for the PS2. 4-player online competitive multiplayer in a rhythm game with absolutely zero lag, a remix mode that lets you create music collaboratively with 4 people online and then share them around, a duel mode where one player lays down notes for the next person to play and you take turns attacking each other. The lobbies in the remix mode let you chat with other players with a USB or the on-screen keyboard and use shortcut chat messages. The custom character creator was also helpful to help distinguish everybody in the community as well, since you had a face to the name. I'll make a video about Frequency one day. It too had a single player campaign, a remix mode, as well as a little hidden online mode which you could only access by hot swapping the PS2 online startup disc. Fun fact. The community was truly something special. It was a tight-knit community of friends, unlike any other multiplayer game I've ever played. That's why I was so excited when the Kickstarter went live for a new game in the series. Here it is. This version of Amplitude contains only one song, Space by POD. Wait a minute. No, this is the exclusive POD version of Amplitude that came with the CD version of the album, Payable Upon Death. If you haven't heard of this, it's got a POD song from the album that you can only listen to by playing the game. The song is Space, but no, this isn't the Kickstarter sequel. Frequency. Amplitude. What do you call the third game? Well, they just went with Amplitude. The Kickstarter launched in May of 2014 with some pretty crazy reward items. Depending on how much money you spent, you got the game, an exclusive song, an exclusive ship, your name in the credits, a game case, an art book, a t-shirt, the soundtrack on vinyl, your own song in the game. You could become a beta tester, have dinner with the developers, and for some reason Tim Schafer, and even get a helicopter tour of Boston with some of the developers. Stretch goals were announced at the very last minute, and unfortunately they included the online multiplayer, the remix mode, and licensed music. The online multiplayer is the biggest heartbreak here, with a frankly absurd $1,125,000 US goal. The funding ended at $844,000, less than 24 hours before the deadline, and the game was released on January 5th, 2016 for $20 on the PlayStation Network.
Try again.
Amplitude 2016 is a bit different from the PS2 version, but the basic concept is of course still the same. The biggest difference beyond missing features here is that your ship auto-jumps to the next possible track, and if there's a power-up in the notes after the bar you're on, you get that power-up. So if you're on the far right track and you need to get to the far left without missing a beat, you just tap left once and you're there. On the PS2, you need to keep track of how many over you are. Position your hand so your right thumb is on the left stick and your left thumb is on the D-pad, and mash the left button the exact number of times you need to get to the right track. It's a simple change, but one that makes the game way easier. Mix that with a constant steady stream of power-ups, and you've got yourself a game that's honestly a bit too easy for somebody who's alright at the game. One other difference is the score multipliers. Instead of going to 8 times and using a score doubler to get to 16, the multiplier now goes to 4 times, and the score doubler gives you 8. This game contains 30 songs, most of which are original compositions created specifically for the game by Harmonix themselves. Harmonix has a talented team of musicians working for them, including members of Freeze Pop, Symbian Project, a lot of the bonus songs from Guitar Hero 1 and 2 if you remember those. Harmonix project director Casson Croker, for example, is in Freeze Pop, and he's also computer controller, and Cosmonaut Zero, and DJ HMX, for one example. What you end up with here is an absurdly good soundtrack of electronic music that you've never heard before. Love sent from other developers such as Insomniac Games, who contributed a ton of money to the Kickstarter campaign, Danny Baranowski, the Super Meat Boy, Crypto the Necrodancer guy, as well as some crazy good songs from semi-established underground artists in the rhythm game scene. It's a solid soundtrack to play to, and not once did I miss the Blink-182, Slipknot, and other mainstream artists that are in the PS2 game. Unfortunately, with Harmonix going indie and losing support from Sony, who owns the Frequency and the Amplitude IPs, and with a lower crowd-funded budget, what you get is a single-player story mode, local competitive multiplayer, a team-based local multiplayer that pits 2 versus 2 or 1 versus 3, and the ability to switch to a tunnel-based note highway from Frequency if you want. There's no remix mode or online here. Just gonna briefly touch on the story mode, but the story mode is presented as a 15-song concept album starring a patient, and completing each song is themed around curing her brain. Lyrical and environmental themes, as well as voice clips at the start and the end of the songs, tie the whole story together. But it's little more than an excuse to blast beats, and it's over in about an hour and a half. Worth a run through for sure, but you'll have just as much fun playing the quick play and tackling the leaderboards. I've been obsessed with rhythm games my whole life. It's by far my favorite game genre, and it's a genre I think I'm not half bad at. After replaying these games for the first time in such an extremely long time, I'm happy to admit that I still think they're the best rhythm games of all time. Even with every Japanese and North American game taken into consideration, there isn't a single game that's as feature complete as the PS2 versions of Frequency and Amplitude. We didn't talk about Frequency much, but rest assured it's got all the same features as Amplitude on the PS2, including the online. It's a game that's a little less close to my heart, as by the time I picked it up, I'd already become obsessed with Amplitude. Another video. It's truly an impressive feat that Harmonix was able to get this released and playable at 60 frames per second over 20 years ago. If you haven't played these before, pop open an emulator and go nuts. Or grab the game on PS4 or PS3. It's super cheap and by far the most fun you'll have playing a rhythm game. If you do decide you want to play it, I have a couple little tips for you if you want. Tip 1. Alternate between the face buttons and the trigger buttons. You can blast the left note with L1, or you can blast the left note with square. And if you want to hit fast runs, you'll have to get good at alternating between the two. Playing with only one button's like playing Guitar Hero and only strumming down. Tip 2. Get good at looking at the notes coming down on the track you're planning to switch to. You see the drum track on the far right. Even if you manage to get over to it in time without losing your multiplier, it's not going to do you any good if you don't know what note you have to hit 0.0001 milliseconds after you get to it. Make sure you look. If you're playing on the PS2, when you're switching tracks, try to get used to moving your right thumb down to the left stick and your left thumb on the D-pad. This lets you alternate between methods of moving so you can move way faster. You can even move 2 tracks over at the same time by pushing left on the D-pad and left of the stick at the same time. It's probably the most valuable skill you can get. Alright, final tip. So keep in mind, you're going to be pushing these buttons an absolutely disgusting number of times. You will break your controller. I've been through so many controllers playing these games, it's insane. If that's too much, thankfully you can still have a good time by just pushing only one button. The subscribe button down there. I'm so sorry. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm still a super new channel, and I'm attempting weekly uploads here. It's hard work, and any support I can get from you would honestly mean the world. Just the like button, the subscribe button, the bells after you click the subscribe button. I don't care. Any one or combination of the three would do me a huge solid. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Bye.